Welcome to Show and Tell. In this series, I review brand new games quickly and with as much detail as possible. Ready? Go. Rogue State is a management game where you play as the leader of a Middle Eastern country. The whole idea is that you led the rebellion, man or woman, that overthrowed a previous tyrannical power, and the people look to you to rebuild and propel the country into prosperity. It is procedurally generated, with new countries, ministers, and events each game, but there is one major constant that is present in every single game: your brother Farouk. He will be trying to undermine everything you do, and if you let your popularity dwindle, Farouk will make his move and take over leadership by force. In addition to this, you might have to deal with war, environmental and social issues, terrorism, financial crises, debt, and more. So there's a lot to pay attention to. I'm gonna begin this game at rock bottom. This game is presented abhorrently. It looks and plays like it was made 20 years ago. I mean, I don't think there is any aspect of this game that couldn't have been done in the 90s. Maybe aside from the resolution. In addition to the aesthetic issues, it played in a 4:3 aspect ratio and 30 FPS, and I don't think it's possible to go any higher than that. To me, this reeks of trying to be overly ambitious with the visuals. Personally, I think a top-down pixel approach definitely wouldn't have been anything special, but it would have been a lot cleaner and palatable than this. Just as an example, if I try and twist it into a positive, then maybe you'd like the presentation if you have nostalgia for 90s point-and-click games. That's the kind of visual vibe I get from it. Presentation is important, but it can be completely overruled by solid mechanics. I thought about this for a while, but I think the best description of what this game's like is long live the queen but randomly generated. I feel like at first that seems appealing to Long Live the Queen fans, which I'm one of, by the way. I love that game. But actually that makes the game extremely challenging. I feel like if you knew everything in advance that was going to happen, you could maybe beat this game and reach the final turn 50. However, since you don't know anything that's going to happen other than a few key events, it becomes a game of luck rather than one of strategy. Everything can be going perfectly for you, but if suddenly you have a terrorist problem and you have to begin putting money into the intelligence agency, you can quickly find yourself in debt, and you reach a point where, even if you stop the terrorists, your country hates you and Farouk takes over. This is compounded by the fact you are constantly pressured into spending money in the events that occur every turn. It's very hard to deal with these situations when you're given such a tiny time frame to combat them in. One of the more cool mechanics, though, is that you have to make a speech every year, and you pick what the leader says in that speech. Again, it's cool. You have to make sure you don't contradict yourself and stay relevant, but even then it does get repetitive, and eventually I just found it unreliable and clicked through it out of boredom. There are some fun ideas here, but ultimately everything is tainted by that unfair difficulty. The story is really just furniture, but the theme is pretty interesting to me. I like that you have the opportunity to run a country in whatever way you please. It's a pretty good role-playing game, I think. There's some social commentary mixed in with the turn-by-turn events, which is interesting, and there's some pretty funny writing here and there. There's a potential neighboring country you can have called Chickenstan, and you can unlock a perk which allows you to understand the ancient Chickenstan language. I will say that there are a couple of groaners in there in terms of the writing, but I have a suspicion that was what they were going for in those situations. Now it's time for me to say whether I think it's worth it or not. The game is $13 at launch. I'm gonna be blunt. For most people, I wouldn't recommend this game. I was kind of joking about this earlier, but if there really are people who are nostalgic for this kind of look and are really into the idea of role-playing as a Middle Eastern leader, then yeah, sure, I recommend it, but I feel like that is an incredibly tiny subset of people. Frankly, you're only really going to like this if you're big into management games, and even then, there are better management games out there. Prison Architect is a great game that allows you to actually build the prison as well as set things like policies, prison schedules, etc. that offers everything that Rogue State does, only better. Even smaller games like Game Dev Tycoon and Long Live the Queen get a bit of an edge over Rogue State. It's a shame, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. I'm excited to see more from this developer, but Rogue State is one you'll probably want to give a miss. Thank you so much for watching. If you thought this was a good review, leave me a like because that makes it easier for people to find this video. If not, leave a dislike guilt-free, but try and leave feedback so I can improve for next time. See ya.